This is the new project. It's a stereo cabinet from 1967, I believe. The electronics do not work, and that's what we'll be addressing today. It came with some interesting paperwork. So the sales tag from a furniture store in Oregon for $398. In today's dollars, that's like just shy of 4,000, which is kind of crazy to think that something as simple as this cost that much at the time. So yeah, we're gonna get into it, try to salvage electronics if we can, and if not, replace it with some new stuff.
All right, I've got the unit taken apart a little bit here. The radio housing really has the majority of electronics, and it's not currently working. So what I've heard and what I saw online is that in many cases the potentiometers can get corrosion on their contacts, and then that corrosion can prevent the flow of electricity through them. So then obviously you're not going to get any sound or use out of the unit. So what I'm doing here is going through with electrical contact cleaner, spraying the potentiometers, and then turning the dials back and forth to try and clear off any corrosion if there is any. Here I've got everything wired back up and the unit is still not working. This isn't terribly surprising. Again, online I found that the capacitors in these tend to go bad over time, and these are 60 years old, so it's not a shock that the capacitors are out. And I was kind of planning for this, so what we're going to do is replace the primary electronics with some newer hardware. Won't have radio functionality, but I don't really listen to the radio nowadays anyway, so it's not a huge deal. This thing smells like your grandma's closet. So what I'm doing here is just sprinkling some baking soda in there to try and absorb that smell and hopefully make it more tolerable.
Like I said, this isn't working, but I intend to keep it in the unit because the faceplate, you can see that the actual cover part's been taken off, but it looks kind of cool. I want to keep it looking pretty original. So I'll keep the radio in there despite it not working. And I hope these speakers work. I don't really have a way of testing them until I get equipment. I did order some electronics to replace the radio and whatnot, as well as the record player. This piece here, I have done some research, and this is the crossover. So basically this unit's set up as two channels where the left and the right are independent channels, and then from my understanding or what I've found online, the crossover splits the higher and lower frequencies such that the tweeter horn in the back there is only going to try to emit the higher frequencies, and the woofer here is only going to emit the lower frequencies. That way, you don't have this high frequency sound coming out of the larger speaker, because that causes some like less than ideal sound generation. So anyway, this is a pivotal piece. Everything kind of ties into the crossover that I was talking about. So the negatives, they share a common ground between both channels, which when I did some research online, I may not actually want. So I'm gonna do is separate the grounds, and then I'll have to just connect the positive and the ground to my new receiver. Here is what the unit that I got is. I originally thought this was a 4-channel system. Like I said, it's only a 2, so I didn't need this. I probably could have gotten away with a cheaper 2-channel since this is 4, but I think this will work, at least to test it out, and maybe we'll exchange it for something else. But like I said, I've got my soldering iron heating up. I'm gonna clip this jumper. These are connecting the grounds, like I said. And then all I'll have to do is tie wires in from the positive parts of each circuit. Up here, the blue, and down here, the green. And then, like I said, tie in negatives to both of these terminals and hook those up to the receiver. So once I do that, I think it'll be good to go. The other concern that I have in the research that I did, these speakers are like generally only supposed to be rated to like 25 watts, I think. Most modern equipment seems to be greater than that. So I'm a little concerned there, but I think if I keep the volume low, at least until I get a better idea of what's gonna, these might be burnt out already as it is anyway, so it might be a moot point, but I intend to keep the volume low just to hopefully avoid the possibility of burning these out right now. But yeah, where was I going with that? This thing is 200 watts, so it's 50 watts per channel, 2 speakers per channel. So I would expect that between the 2 sets, we probably won't have a power issue. I don't know. Not really. I don't really know what I'm talking about in that regard. So take that with a grain of salt. If you know better, let me know, and let everyone else know down below. Also, if y'all think there's a better alternative than using something like this, I'm all for it. And share that information below as well. One thing I did like about this unit is that it's got built-in Bluetooth mode, so I can, my wife really wants the record player, but I'm more, I don't really care about playing records. I'd rather just hook up my phone or whatever via Bluetooth. So that's what, this one has that. So anyway, if y'all have other suggestions for this, like I said, put a comment down below. Let's just see. That'll work. Easy enough. I'm going to tie a negative lead right there, and then I'll tie in a positive to one of these guys here. If y'all know why that's buzzing, let me know down below. Like I said, electronics are not a strong suit of mine. In college, that was like my least favorite thing and my worst grades, so I've got a less than positive track record in that regard. hearing the audio or noise that's coming through the woofer when I get the solder iron close is an indication that they're not burnt out or anything, but like I said, I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, I've got the two sets wired in. I think we're just about ready to plug the receiver in and turn it on. All right, real quick, I hooked everything up and I got audio through the left side. So what I'm gonna do, but not the right side. I don't know, I'm hoping it's a capacitor thing. So I'm gonna try and swap each side to see if then the right side works. And then based on that, I'll go from there. I swapped terminals on the crossover here. The left side, or rather the left side was the one that was playing fine before. When I swapped it, the right side did play, but it sounded pretty terrible. Not really sure why. The only thing I can think of is the wires being kind of bad, or the speakers are just, kind of shot. What I'm gonna do now is swap out the wire with some newer wires and hope that that solves the problem.
So I did change the wire going to the right channel. It didn't fix the problem. So what you're seeing here is just a quick time lapse of me changing the capacitors. I figured it'd be better to be safe than sorry, and was really hoping that this would fix my problem. I also took the time to fix some of the solder joints that I had made before. With this sitting flat, it was a lot easier to get some better soldering contact and just tidying up those circuits a little bit.
All right, crossover is assembled. Turns out I don't think any of the components were bad. I realized that the receiver that I bought has 4 channels. You cannot separate, you can't skip a channel. So if you try to skip channel 2, the audio level through channel 3 will be like super, super low. So I ended up pushing what I had in channel 3 back into channel 2, and all of a sudden it all works. So you can see I changed the wiring too, because I thought that might be the issue, but it turns out that's not the problem. So if you buy something like this, make sure you're using back-to-back channels. All right, I skipped some steps, but here is the actual finished product. This is the turntable I bought. It's an AT LP70. I bought this one in particular because it has buttons on the top. I knew the buttons wouldn't be accessible from the front, so that's the main reason I got this one. Like I said before, it's a little wider than the slot here was, so I ended up going and cutting a gap in this face here. I need to go through and touch up, some of these corners and the top part here. I caught that with the oscillating tool, unfortunately, but even as it is right now, like, you really have to go out of your way to find that. And then I drilled a hole for the input there in the back, and I ran the power through the groove with excess space right there in the corner. I put the radio back in, as you can see. That looks pretty good. Down here in the bottom, you can see I drilled 2 holes, one for the speaker wire and then one for the power. Actually, there's 3 holes, sorry. And then the third hole is for the line in from the record player. I plan on 3D printing a bracket that will mount the receiver right here. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. But that'll probably be one of the last few things I have to do on this. I'll close it up here and show it from further back. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. Aside from the bracket, like I mentioned, I am going to go through and touch up some of the corners. There's some just marks from it getting run into, and just where over the years. So I'm gonna go through and touch those up, and then probably put some restore finish on it, and that's pretty much it. Slowly on the ground. Yeah, I know your town was humming. Slowly on the ground. In no face I recognize, and my baby